Hello and welcome to the Sthenics podcast. I'm your host, Dennis, and today I'm here with Leo.
Hi, everyone.
So today we will have another Q&A episode since you requested it, and we have quite a few questions to go through. So I would say we can get started right away.
Okay, but wouldn't you like to update a little bit first about your training? How are you doing? I know that guys are really interested in that aspect too, so we can touch maybe a little bit on that.
Okay.
So what are you doing, Dennis, now? So last time we were cutting, yes, and now?
Now I'm done with the cut. I reached my lowest weight, I think, in almost 3 years. And I feel great. I feel good. It's not too low, and I can still perform very well. I'm super happy with how the training is going, and in the next phase, I will slowly start to eat again, and keep on with hypertrophy training since I'm enjoying that a lot, and finally implement leg training again. So, few exciting things to come. But I think I'll tell more once I really start with that. At the moment, training is not very different from how it used to be. I think from the first Q&A episode, my skills are getting better and better without training them too much. And since just the weight goes down and every other number in the training is going up, especially curls, which I'm enjoying a lot at the moment.
And you are planning to compete, didn't you?
Yes.
Aren't you?
Yeah. My idea is to finally go into a streetlifting competition. Some of you might know that I have only competed in freestyle competitions until now, but my numbers in streetlifting lifts are quite all right, especially for German standards. And I'm thinking to compete in Final Rep 2022. So I'm gonna start training legs seriously again after having had a time off during the pandemic now. But yeah, it's gonna be exciting. I think like upper body lifts, I won't have too much to do since my numbers are quite high. But legs, there's a lot of work to do, and so well, I will gain weight again, but very slowly this time and very controlled, to just feel comfortable and not putting on too much useless weight on, which is not the goal for the competition, especially in upper body lifts. How is your training going?
Okay, I'm deloading again. I think also last time I was deloading during the last Q&A podcast. So yes, but usually I train a lot, so it's just coincidence.
Train,
so don't worry. Yes, actually today is my third day of deload. Usually I never do three complete rest days in a row. But yesterday I got my second COVID vaccine shot, and yes, I prefer to chill a little because also I'm feeling a little bit the shoulder, but nothing special. So yes, tomorrow I'm planning to do usually I do 3 days of the normal plan in 2 days during the deload, and tomorrow I will do 3 days in a row for the deload. But the deload is really, really light, so 1 hour and a half, and it should be enough to do that. And yes, that's it. And then I'm starting the third mesocycle of this massing phase. And yes, here I will implement some more intensity technique, probably. Usually implement them in the last mesocycle of the macro cycle. And yes, after that, probably 1 or 2 weeks of maintenance. And then we go again with another macro cycle of massing, and that will repeat. And I will repeat that, I think, until next summer, maybe even more, maybe 1 or 2 mini cuts in between. And yes, that's it.
Very nice. And you started dipping, right? Again.
Yes, and yes, I was never really focused only on dips, but yes, I think two years ago it was something less. It was the last time I trained them. At the time, yes, I was training in a very different manner, and now it's really strange because I haven't dipped in a almost 2 years. And I think that I'm already, after 3 weeks of doing just 5 to 6 singles at very light intensity, so 5 to 6 singles with a lot of buffer, because from one side you have to go again into the movement. Another thing is I have to correct. I wanted to change some things in technique to optimize the weight that I can lift. And the other thing is also I don't want to. It's just a complementary thing, so I don't want to miss up my hypertrophy training, which is the focus of this. Which is the focus for me now. So I use them like a warm up, and yes, with just this low amount of work, I'm already in PR zone. So it's pretty nice. I hope to hit, I don't know, maybe 100 kgs in a couple of months if possible. Let's see how it goes. Now I'm just increasing linearly 5 kgs from week to week. And yes, next time I will do the 80s, and the 75 moved really, really nicely. And let's see. So yes, this could be also another confirmation that having more muscle mass and working technically, it's usually better. Of course, if the goal was to only increase deep strength, then I would train it differently. But it's not my main goal. So it's also an experiment, and we can for sure make a case study about that if everything goes like planned. So let's see.
Absolutely. Very good. Awesome. I think we can start with the questions now.
Okay, so I will start with one related specifically to a skill, and the skill is the 90-degree push-up. And the question is, how would you typically program for the 90-degree handstand push-up, and what are the prerequisites?
Okay. Well, 90-degree handstand push-up is not usually a skill we put like a lot of focus on. The way we let our clients train them is they first need to learn a normal handstand push-up, of course, and feel confident with a normal handstand push-up on the floor or on very low parallettes. Then we start implementing maybe some isometric holds at the bottom before they go up, just to improve strength and technique in a certain range of motion. Start working on deep handstand push-ups, and once the athlete has reached the full range of motion handstand push-up, we can, if the client is interested into it, implement work for the 90-degree handstand push-up. And usually we do it with technical work, keeping the main work on deep handstand push-ups, full range of motion handstand push-ups, and normal handstand push-up, while understanding the eccentric and the concentric of the movement separately. So first of all, the eccentric, understanding how to lean into it, since the lean is different than in a full range of motion handstand push-up. I don't feel like the 90-degree handstand push-up is more difficult than the deep handstand push-up, because you actually don't go as deep, but the center of mass is just in a different position. But that's I think, depends from person to person what feels easier and better for them usually, and depends how steep they go down in the full range of motion handstand push-up. Some like to lean more forward, and for those, the 90-degree handstand push-up usually comes very naturally. So they need to understand how to lean forward, bringing the hips down at the same time. Then they need to understand the bottom position, the bent arm planche position, and how to get out of that without swinging everything out of the legs. And once they have understood both elements, we can implement the first 90-degree handstand push-ups. Anything to add?
Yes, I would add to that a lot of times people think that it's important to train the bent arm planche in the bottom position, but usually when you are at the point of training the 90-degree push-up, you are already strong to easily hold that position. So okay, maybe here and there If we have problems with proprioception, it can be a good idea, but usually it's really not necessary. So I see it a lot. I see it usually like a waste of time. And yes, and when you start to train them, so that it's usually done after the handstand push-ups, full run, be careful to not just add them into the plan like you are as you want, but be careful because they also count as volume. Usually the limiting factor are the shoulders, sometimes the triceps, but yes, it adds as a volume. So maybe once you are good with your deep handstand push-ups, really put them on the maintenance, reduce the volume that you are the volume for them, and try to focus more on the 90 degrees. So for example, at the beginning of the training, first do your eccentrics or concentrics if you are already at that point, and then just 1 or 2 sets of free handstand push-up full run with possibly a consistent buffer. And another thing that I would add, yes, usually we implement the eccentric and then the concentric, but yes, but another variation can also be to start after doing the eccentrics, we can just do the movement beginning from the bent arm planche and doing immediately the concentric. So skip this allows to don't do the first part of the movement, which can require some strength, so it's less fatiguing, and we can just focus on the concentric, and then maybe we can merge the two things together. But of course, it's not mandatory. It's just another.
Exactly. Some people it comes natural, and they can actually do a 90-degree handstand push-up just like that. And if you see that they have some technical mistakes, you can always add some extra work to understand it. But I would set as a main goal the full range of motion handstand push-up, and then you can actually, once you reach that, just learn this on the side without like having big focus, exactly as you said, like doing bent arm planches without end. It's not very useful. The thing that's useful is understanding how to get out of this position to go into the 90-degree. And bent arm planches, as we talked in the Planche podcast and some YouTube videos, are more an exercise that we use to understand hip positioning, especially in the straddle, more than just putting strength in that particular angle.
Okay, moving on. I would go with this one. So, how to deal with light bulk and skill progress?
Mm-hmm.
Or, yes, and then it asks, is it maybe just a good idea to only maintain skills during this time?
Okay, I think there's probably not like one answer fits all. I think it depends a lot on what your goals are. Like if you're gaining weight because you're very skinny, so you're a beginner and you want to learn skills and you want to learn and you want to gain weight and muscle mass during that time. For most people, if you don't have like a lot of muscle mass already, it's gonna go hand in hand until you do enough basic work on the side to really work on that muscle, and you just keep technical work for the skills. You will improve in both without problem. For example, I think in the question Patrick's video was nominated. Like he, for example, gained a lot of weight and learned the skills at the same time, but it was like a linear process of doing both. And he was very skinny before. He had very good genetics to put on muscle and to stay extremely lean while putting on muscle. It's something that not everyone can do in that matter. Like it's or you can or you can't. He stays very lean even though he eats almost 5,000 calories a day at the moment and gains weight and looks leaner day by day. So it's kind of an exception. But in the beginning, it will work and you will do it. If you're a more advanced athlete who already has a lot of muscle mass, it depends a lot on where you put the muscle mass. For example, if you only implement leg training later on in the training like I did, your skills will start to suffer because most of the weight won't come in the upper body, but there will come more to on the legs. And in these cases, you will have to probably maintain. Like, you can train them, but you will see that there's no possibility to progress on them, and that you need to do a lot of work to just keep them there where they are. And then it's up to you if you want to keep training the movement a lot and risking of getting injured, or just maintaining it. That's what I think is a smart idea, maintaining it with quite a low volume to not risk anything. And then later on, once you cut the fat off that you put on in your bulk, regain them, because that's just the smarter way to deal with it. And you maintain the movement, you maintain the technique. Of course, you won't risk getting injured. And once you're lighter again, things will come back super easily. That's what happened for me. That's what happened with Leo. So I think it depends really on person to person. You can try to train them, especially if you slow bulk. And if you have more muscle mass to put on your upper body, it will work, especially in the target muscles for that skill. If you put a lot of muscle in muscles that aren't the target muscles for that skill, probably things will get harder. But it's something you can only see once you do it. Honestly, I don't think there's like a general rule that it's gonna work here or not. I think that you can see is like, if you look at most skills athletes that compete and are very strong at it, they usually are around HB -1 to -5 or something like that, meaning they're
sometimes even more.
Yeah, like if they're 170, they weigh 60 or less kgs. So meaning you don't need that much muscle, and they're extremely lean. You don't need that much muscle mass in most cases to hold certain skills. For some people, it's going to be more. For some people, it's going to be less. There are cases where if there's not enough muscle to hold a certain position, you see that often with front levers, especially in female athletes. They tend to use other more little muscles to compensate if their lat isn't strong and big enough, and they get back problems, infraspinatus, supraspinatus problems, things like that, or on the rhomboids. So muscle mass is useful, but everyone needs to find the set point, or the point where they feel comfortable with it themselves. And more muscle is usually better, but for skills, it's not always better. I think
I would add a couple of things. So first of all, if you're starting your massing phase, don't start with 5,000 calories, because yes, Patrick, it's an exception, and probably that it's not a really good idea for you. And yes, I will give some practical advice maybe. So if your goals are the skills, before starting, and you are intermediate or advanced, before going, the first thing that you have to do is to maximize your strength with the current muscle mass that you have. So first of all, focus on that. Then if you see that you are not progressing anymore for a lot of months, and that I don't know, 2 to 5 months, and you tried a lot of different methods, yes, in that case, I would think about bulking. So this is a first thing. And I would add also to what you said that so you can, I'm in the same opinion. So intermediate and advanced, probably for them it's better to maintain skills. And also because maybe, yes, if you set a progression, maybe you are potentially gaining strength for what regards strength adaptations, but you can't really know because you're also gaining weight, and that can lead to frustration. So maybe you program to add some seconds the next week, and then you can't, in fact, add that seconds, but maybe you are stronger, but you can just add seconds because you're getting weighter, you're putting fat and muscle mass in other points of the body. So that can lead to frustration. And the other thing is, when massing, really, if you have to choose between progressing on sets, adding more volume on sets, and on the hypertrophy or the hypertrophy work, I would really advise to maximize the hypertrophy work, because you are in a surplus, and we all know that during a surplus, unless you're not a beginner, you will for sure put some fat and some muscle. So if someone tells you that you can put muscle without losing fat, without gaining also fat, probably he's not trained. He's not telling you the truth. So keep in mind that you will gain fat, and if you don't maximize the amount of hypertrophy work that you are doing, then you will gain more fat than planned. So really, we have to try to maximize the ratio between muscle gaining and fat gaining. So, and in order to do that, hypertrophy work, it's so certain exercises working with normal reps and not isometrics, it's way better than doing isometrics.
If you want to put on muscle mass, hypertrophy training is just the way to go, and that needs to be clear.
But of course, with the isometrics, we can put some muscle, but if this was the optimal way, then all bodybuilders would train with isometrics, which is clearly not the case.
Yeah, I think that answers the question. It's like not a yes or no. It will depend. And there are better ways to put on muscle mass than others, and you need to find a mix that makes you happy and works for you.
Yes, and also another I can't say the word.
Misconception?
Yes, misconception. There is which is present in the calisthenics world, is that we have to use skills in order to build muscle mass, but that's not true at all. There are some exercises, for example, front lever raises sometimes are good to put muscles where we want for the front lever, but in general it's not mandatory, and probably you shouldn't use them because there are way better exercises with barbell, with dumbbells, with machines. So really, yes, keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Okay, I will go with, I think this one is pretty short. And the question is how to work on balance in unilateral exercises, for example, pistol squats.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think with pistol squats, the problem the problem most people have isn't balance itself, but it's a missing ankle mobility in most cases. Like if someone has a good ankle mobility, he can quite easily sit down in the bottom position of the pistol squat without any problems. While if you don't have that, you think you have a balance problem because you keep falling backwards. So the way we work on the pistol squat for someone who wants to learn it for the first time is some ankle mobility exercises to understand how to lean the knee forward, and things like bottom holds, for example. They sit at the bottom of the pistol squat. To start with, you can use a weight in your hand, which makes it easier, and then you can always use an easier weight and understand the bottom position. And then mostly just by trying, because balance is something you need to learn by trying the movements. Once you have enough mobility to be at the bottom, you can start to stand up, and then you can start doing the full movement. I think, do you have anything to add?
Not really. Maybe if you really want to focus, if you're 100% sure that you have a very big problem with your balance in some point of the movements, maybe add some isometrics there, and that's it, which usually for the pistol squats are not in the bottom position, because the bottom position for what regards balance is it's pretty easy. And yes, usually I would say it's somewhere in the middle of the movement. Maybe there you can add some pauses if you are 100% sure. And yes, in the bottom position, if you had a problem, usually it's a mobility problem, and we usually implement. This is why also we usually implement some isometrics on in the bottom position. And like for other skills, for example, the handstand, whenever there are some balance requirements in the movement, it's completely fine to fail a rep or something and just to repeat it. It's a completely normal thing. I know maybe on social media you always see the guys completing everything, so it seems that everyone can always trains clean, trains perfectly, but there are a lot of fails for skills where the balance is involved.
Absolutely. Yeah. Think we can go to the next one. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Yes, this one maybe. For stronger planche, is handstand push-up or planche push-ups better? So I can reformulate it maybe. Which is better in order to achieve the planche? Which of these exercise is better, handstand push-ups or planche push-ups?
Okay, I think best thing to do is to go and listen to our Planche episode on this channel. I think we answered the question. The planche generally is an extremely specific exercise, meaning you need to train it as specific as possible, and the way you put on muscle or the strength for the planche is honestly your choice. Planche push-ups are very, very specific as exercise. We like to implement them when people already have achieved usually like a more difficult version of the planche. They're maybe already working on the straddle planche, and then we start adding work for the planche push-ups, but less to put on muscle. We use other exercises to put on muscle on the shoulders, so getting stronger shoulders. Handstand push-ups are a preferred method, and I generally feel like it's like a subjective thing that people that have learned the handstand push-up at least know how long it learns to learn a skill and learn the balance and learn all the little steps that you need to reach something, and that teaches you something for planche, because planche is that times 10 for most people. What do you think, Leo?
I don't know if he was referring to free handstand push-ups or back to wall handstand push-ups, but yes, in general, if he was referring to free handstand push-up and the goal is to just put strength in for the planche, so strength in the shoulders for the planche, then I wouldn't use the free handstand push-up at all for that goal, because balance comes into play, and the balance, if we have to think about balance, we are not maximizing strength gains for sure. And yes, so between these two exercises, like you said, I think neither of them is the best way if the goal is just to put let's say raw strength in the shoulders. And if you're referring to back to wall handstand push-ups, okay, then this is an option. But usually we then implement the pike push-ups, because it's usually easier to work with full range of motion with pike push-ups. So full range of motion pike push-ups are way easier than back to wall full range of motion handstand push-ups. And also the back to wall handstand push-ups, you have always to use the same surface, because your feet slide on the wall, and it changes, I would say, considerably from which type of surface you use. And yes, also I know maybe for someone it's funny, but also depends also on the socks. If you're wearing socks, if you're wearing shoes, that are all factors that come into place. And then, as always, you can't quantify the progress, and also, yes, this can lead to frustration. And
I think the angle in which you hit the pike push-up is more specific for the shoulder itself too. Like in a back to wall handstand push-up, it's more tricep work often than shoulder work. Just from the angle, it's not that optimal. So
yes, and also if you work with the half from push-ups, so on the floor, I think that already this is not optimal. You are not hitting at all the angle of the planche, which is lower which is lower usually. And also for the handstand push-ups back to wall on the floor, there are sometimes guys just use a really wide grip, and then the ROM it's even lower, and I think it's not a good idea. So yes, for putting raw strength, probably the two best exercises are pike push-ups and military press.
Yeah. And train the planche itself.
Of course,
because
yes.
it's specific. So without finding magic methods or magic exercises that will make you stronger in it.
Yes, and also the planche push-ups, for example, yes, they require a lot of balance. Also, I would not balance, yes, but you. The problem is that you don't have only to focus on shoulders, but you have to focus a lot on abs, on hips, maintaining form. So it's not optimal for just pure strength perspective at the shoulder level.
Yeah. Perfect. Next one up.
I will go with this one. So the question is simply sets per week per skill. So I think that he's asking how many sets you should do per week for skills training.
Okay, well, usually the smartest idea is to start with a low number and then work your way up to more sets and see where you improve and how well it's going. Are you improving how you thought you were improving? Are things getting better? Is the quality always the same? I think with most skills, we usually start with 6 to 8 sets a week. But as a general rule of thumb, and it can end up with double or even more of that, plus counting assistance work, where you have probably other 6 to 8 sets a week, depending on what you need to do for the exercise and if it's in focus or not. So yeah, I think these are general guidelines you can follow without exaggerating.
Yes, and I would add that there are guys that can handle perfectly even more volume, up to 30, maybe 40 sets per week for some skills. So for example, for the planche, but this shouldn't be the first thing that you do when you start training. So it's always better to build up volume, because body needs also time to condition itself. And yes, this is what I would say. Also depends a lot on how many other movements are you training that involves the same muscle. So for example, if our goal is only the front lever and we don't want to train one arm pull up, we have not goals of increasing one maximal strength for the normal pull-ups, then of course we can do way more volume for the front lever. But if you want to compete in straight lifting, you want to develop one arm pull-ups, you want to learn the front lever, and maybe also, I don't know what, Hefesto that involves your biceps, then you have to program less sets for sure for the front lever. So it's always like that. And yes, so from 6 to 8 sets in the beginning, and also depends from what progression you plan to do during the month. So a lot of time we just add sets from week to week, and as you go more deeply into the month, as the weeks progress, then you get acquired to the volume, and then you can more easily add sets. So one thing is to start with 20 sets first week, and another thing is to start 10 sets in the first week and then build up then to 20. So the body, the body gets used to that and can handle that. Then the volume more easily. And yes, I think, another thing is if you want to maintain skills, then usually the volume is also lower than that. So a lot of time you can just maintain skills with zero, I would say, for really easy movements, or that comes really natural to you. But yes, usually it's something from 2 to 4 sets per week. It's enough to maintain a skill. But yes, also if you're maintaining skills, try it. And yes, also here start. No, when maintaining, I would start a little bit higher, and there I would then lower the volume if I see that I can maintain the movement easily. And this is how you can find then the break point where technique starts to break down.
Yeah.
And another thing that I would add, if the skill is very technical, like maybe the one arm handstand, and you don't have problems with wrists and with any joint, you can do way more work for that movement for sure, because it's not fatiguing. It just requires a lot of practice.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we said it all. Like generally, the idea is you start low, you build up, and you will see that there's like an amount of sets where you can improve very well from week to week. And if you notice that by seeing data from months and months of work, you know where you work best, and you will notice where it's too much too, because you will have little pains, you won't recover, performance will go down. So it's super important to get all the data you can in an objective way as possible, to just program your training better with time and see what's optimal for you.
Okay, so here are the two last one which I would like to cover. And the first is percentage work versus RAR or / RPE work. So when it's better to use one and when it's better to use the other.
Okay, so the thing with percentage work, for street lifting especially, we don't have enough data yet. For powerlifting movements like the squat, percentage work can be useful to have certain guidelines, an idea of how you want to train. Especially in higher reps, percentage work gets very, very unexact. Like there are many studies that show that people can, like, the range of reps they can do with 80% of their 1RM differs enormously from person to person, especially if we're talking about higher reps. In the lower rep ranges, percentage work can be useful, but and I feel like that, especially with street lifting lifts, where there are some ways to calculate percentages there too, by adding body weight. There are a few things that have been tried, but still the data is not conclusive enough that I would use percentage work to do so yet. You can use it to have a certain idea of how you want to program the next month. You can use it maybe if you're like peaking and having very like 1 to 3 or 1 to 2 rep range. Probably there it can be very useful too. But many factors impact that, like how you're feeling that day, how things are, just how your stress level is, how your sleep is, etc., etc. Where I would prefer teaching a client to really work with RP and rear, test things like 6 repetition maximum and start from there, and then mostly work with RIR and RP. Of course, there are people that have an extremely hard time gauging the RPs correctly, and they everyone can learn it. I think, especially in lower rep ranges, because in higher it's super difficult, and even athletes that are very experienced have a hard time doing it. But yeah, you can use it. I think you can use percentage-based things just to have a certain idea where you want to go. At least for some people, it can be useful for peaking, especially movements where there's a lot of data, like the squat. In the muscle up, dip, and pull up, I would still stick mostly to RP. This is my opinion. Yeah.
Yes, I would add that yes, the goal should be to learn the RAR and the RPE, but if you are, probably you yes, if this is if you have hard time gauging RPE and RAR, or if one of your clients has this problem after months of trying, because yes, and this problem can be present due to many reasons. So, for example, it's an ego problem. So we have clients that give very low RPE. Then we see the videos and it barely closes. He barely closes the rep, maybe, or other. And this happens more often with girls that are really conservative with their RPs. In this case, is yes, I would focus more on the percentages, but a good idea can be to, since like Danny said, the reps at a certain percentage vary a lot from person to person. A good idea is to create your own table of percentages. So you do a lot of tests, of course, maybe not on the same day, but you I don't know, you test your 100%, okay, so your 1RM, and then you test with other percentages the maximum amount of reps that you can do, and then you create your own table for each percentage. Let's say, I don't know, 100%, 95%, 90%, and a couple of more. And then you use that table in order to program, and that's usually way more accurate than just taking a plan with percentages and applying it to all of your to all of your clients or to yourself, because it's very variable, and the highest the reps, then more
I think
variability.
tables like that could be like are
And
super
yes, I
useful,
think
but they take a
covered
lot
it.
of time to create. Like you can't
Yes.
just test
Okay.
everything in one day. You need to collect data over 6 months, a year. You can do extremely interesting things with it, like for example, calculate the percentage that you have in the pull up compared to a chin up 2, for example, that you can plan very well with that in the future, but it's data you don't collect in 6 months of training. Like it needs a few years to really build it up well, so that it stays consistent over time, and you need to keep improving it. Then of course
And
it's
yes,
awesome.
and another reason why we like the RP is because RP allows to take into consideration how you feel, your daily readiness. So how you feel that day. So if you feel better, then you will perform at the same RP with higher intensities. And if you have a bad day, you slept less than usual or worse than usual, you can just use less weight, and RP will take that into account. So this is one of the main advantages of the RP also.
Very good.
And as Danny said, in order to build that table, it takes time, and RP avoids you to invest all the time in doing that.
Very good.
I will go with the last one, and it is: should I always wear wrist wraps, or it is too risky? It is too risky without it.
Okay, well, I think wrist wraps are like almost people wear them because they're cool in calisthenics more than anything else. Honestly, I wouldn't see wrist wraps as a requirement for anything. Like,
simply, Dennis, are you using wrist wraps?
No, I'm not using wrist wraps. Like I use,
and you can do and you can do some quite some skills.
Yeah, exactly.
I would say.
Yeah, I think like if of course if you have pain in the wrist is very difficult to work around with, because you use it for so many things. You use it using your computer, you use it on your phone, you use it all the time, and usually recovering from a little wrist injury, even though you just maybe weren't warm up to very well, takes a long time, and putting more and more stress on it isn't a great idea. So wearing a wrist wraps for certain movements where you put it in extreme flexion and you feel more pain can be an idea, but of course you need to work on the core problem, do some work for your wrist so it feels better, work on imbalances, and maybe change often. Like, I think that's super often the case. People grip bars like this, and if you hear the podcast, you won't see it, but like an extreme flex position, and you need to learn to bring the wrist in the right position when you do so, so you don't put useless stress on it and you don't hurt yourself in the future. Just slapping a band on it won't solve the problem. It can help you in the recovery process, but generally, no. I would always advise to not use wrist wraps. Only if you really need to. You can use them, and if things feel better that way.
Okay, I wouldn't have nothing to add here, so I think that for today we are done.
We're done. Nice. Very good. Then I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, leave us a like. If you have questions, you can just put them in the comments and we'll answer them in the next podcast. And yeah, we have, I think, maybe a few questions left for the future and other episodes already that we might answer there. So stay tuned for more and hope to see you next time.
Bye, and see you next time.